Good evening, everyone, and welcome to PySkill. My name is Archie, and I will be your anchor for this evening. This session is brought to us by the collaboration of Learning Folks and Let's Bunk Together. Learning Folks is a student support community and an EdTech company with a vision to support BTech students in their journey of pursuing their degrees and helping them find out the right fit for their lives. We currently provide exam support for easy exam preparation for IPU students. This will help you out and not only save you time, but get a platform where you can find all of these super easily. Apart from that, our Pan India community of students, alumni, as well as mentors provide a great opportunity for you all to network and get a platform to do more, what we have always wanted to do. Now, Let's Work Together is a community that aims to make the lives of BTech students easier by providing various features that cater to their needs. Their mission is to provide BTech students with the tools they need to succeed, and their vision is to become the go-to resource for BTech students worldwide. They believe that education should be accessible to everyone, and they want to make it easier for students to learn and grow. They provide a platform where students can access the best resources, connect with like-minded individuals, and receive the support they need to succeed. Now, I would like to welcome Ms. Isha Bansal, an associate software engineer at Clarivate, who will be taking this session and guiding us throughout it. Before proceeding further, I would like to tell you about the flow of the event. Firstly, our speaker will take the session, and at the end, we will be having a quiz. All the participants and the winners of the quiz will be felicitated with a certificate of participation and a certificate of appreciation. Now, without any delay, I would request Ms. Isha Bansal to take over and start with PySkill.
Hello Archie, thank you for the welcome. Let me just switch on my camera. Wait. Yeah. So, hey Archie, hey everyone. So I hope you guys are doing well. And let me just share my screen and I'll just begin the session. Okay. Yeah. Let me know if my screen is visible to you guys.
Yes, it is visible.
Okay, so great. So, hey everyone. So, I hope you guys are doing well. So, today we will just dive into the world of Python and we'll understand what exactly Python is, where it came from, where it originated from, why should we learn it, and some applications. And after that, we will just dive into some basics and understand the basic concepts of Python. So, let's understand what exactly is Python. So there are a few pointers here. So Python is a interpreted, interactive, object-oriented, multi-purpose programming language. So let's break it down for you guys. So I'm aware, I don't know if you guys are aware of what interpreter are. So if any one of you guys can tell me what exactly interpreters are according to you. So if you guys can answer in the chat box, I can read them. Even if you guys don't have any answer to it, you can just say that you don't have an idea and we will move on. Okay. Abhinav, that's a compiler. So interpreter does compile the code at all time, but that's a different thing. Yeah, Harshita, that's correct. So yeah, so interpreter, basically what interpreter does is, interpreter takes the whole code, it debugs it line by line, and whenever there is an error, it's going to throw the error at that particular point. What compiler does is, compiler compiles the whole code in the same time and it shows all the error once and all. So now, So Python is an interpreted language. That means it makes use of interpreters. It's interactive, so like we can do a lot of interactions with it, we can develop games with it, we can develop like a lot of actions materials with it. It's object oriented, so in Python everything is considered as an object. So you don't need to define any data type of the variable beforehand. It takes automatically into the objects. It's a multi-purpose programming language, which means like you can do a lot of things with Python. As I mentioned, you can develop games, you can develop websites, you can do machine learning, artificial intelligence stuff, and you can also develop some basic programs. It's a language which both people as well as computer can understand. So for instance, let's suppose, I'm sure you guys must have coded in C++. So whenever you have to print something out on your screen in C++, so what exactly do you guys do is you guys use cout. And but in Python, if you want to print anything, you directly use the command print to print. So it's a very simple, easy to use syntax language where it's like very simple and it's perfect for beginners like you guys. So it's a flexible language which can like create programs for larger things such as I mentioned earlier, web development, machine learning, and it can also do some simple tasks which is such as just printing the numbers, doing Fibonacci series, printing patterns and all that stuff. So this is a basic Python in a nutshell. Let's move ahead. So now let's look at where Python actually came from. So yeah, so Python was developed by this guy right here. His name is Guido van Rossum. He's a Dutch person. So what happened was like one fine Christmas holidays, Guido was looking for some random hobby to do. So what he thought, like, why not generate a whole scripting language as an hobby? So this was actually a hobby project of Mr. Rossum. So now you might be aware of like Python is a snake, and that's where the logo came from of the Python. But originally, the language was known as the ABC programming language because Guido wanted a programming language which was very simple for beginners. As I mentioned, like you can just you can just write print to print the statements. So he wanted a programming language that is perfect for beginners. So initially it was known as ABC programming language. But after that, he named it after his favorite comedy sketch series, Monty Python's Flying Circus. So that's where the name came from. And one of the amazing thing about Python is that it's a one-person job. So Rossum developed this whole language on his own. Obviously, there are other features which were contributed by other developers, but the base of programming language was done by Rossum himself. Moving on. So now we are aware of what exactly Python is and where did it come from. But you might question like why should we even learn Python in the first place? So let's move ahead. So now there are multiple reasons why one should learn Python. First, it's a popular language. It is being used by a lot of companies. I'm sure you're aware of all of these. Google, YouTube, Instagram, Netflix, Disney, all these companies are using Python these days. It's an open source language. It's open source. It means it's a free language. It's available for everyone to look at, to use, and regardless of where you are. It's a portable language. So when I say it's portable, it means like suppose you write a code in your system. So and you want to share that code with your friend. So you just need to write a code in a file and just share it with your friend. Given Python interpreter is installed in your friend's system, he or she can directly run the code without any other dependencies. It's a simple language. As I'm saying again and again, it's a very simple language. It's easy to syntax. Print means print and so on. There are other statements as well. Whatever is written on the system, it actually does the same job. Lastly, let's look at the real life applications of Python. So some of the real life applications of Python include web development. So Python comes with a lot of inbuilt frameworks. Django is one of the popular one. Even I have used that. So it can develop amazing websites with inbuilt web frameworks. You can just build websites in a few steps. Machine learning and AI, I'm very sure you guys are aware of these terms and you might be listening about these every day in college, like do something in machine learning, do in AI, there is a lot of scope in it. So Python is one of the most stable language that is used to do everything related to machine learning and AI. Game development. If you are a gaming enthusiast, I'm sure many of you guys are. So Python is a language which has a lot of libraries where you can develop games in a few hours. Let me just tell you some examples of games which are built on Python. So, if you guys are aware of Sims 4, so that is developed on Python. There is another game known as Battlefield 2. So, that is also a game that is developed on Python. Operating system. So, Python has the power of developing operating systems as well, and sometimes with the help of other languages. Let's say um, if we take example like if we combine Python and C, we can develop amazing operating system. Example for operating system which are developed in Python are Linux, Ubuntu. If you guys are aware of it, you might have heard of it from the teachers like Linux and all. So these are all about the like basic theoretical part of Python. If you guys have any doubt, you can put in the chat. Okay, later in the session, please let us know. So, do you prefer Java, PySkill? Yeah, I'll let you know. All of these platforms are same. It's all about like which you are most comfortable in. So initially, I used to use VS Code, but then I switched to Google Colab and Jupyter Notebook because I moved to machine learning and all that stuff. So if any one of you guys have any other doubt, you can put it in the chat. Not exactly. As I said, it's all about your comfort, whatever you are comfortable with. Google Colab and why I prefer Google Colab is it already has a lot of libraries installed. You don't need to install most of the libraries manually, so that's why I prefer Google Colab. But for beginners, it's better that you use any of these like PyCharm, VS Code. I don't recommend IDE like the basic one that is recommended. It doesn't have anything, so you have to type everything manually. So that's not something I would recommend. Other than that, you can use any of these. Any other doubts? Okay, again, what Google Colab for ML though? Actually, Google Colab has its inbuilt GPU. So when you are building very complex machine learning programs, so what happens there is that you might need a better processing system than CPU, because it might take hours to like just run your program. So GPU is better there because it's a faster processing. So Google Colab comes with its own free GPU. So that is why we recommend it for machine learning projects. Okay, advantages of GPU. Any other than what you already mentioned? I am like I didn't really dive into much about what exactly GPU is, so like that is something that you don't need to worry about. What my advantages are is like I have developed a project which was related to some image processing stuff. So when I applied it over CPU, I forgot to like enable GPU in the Google Colab. So it took like 4 to 5 hours. But when I converted it to GPU, so the processing was faster. So I guess it went on within an hour or so. So mainly advantage of GPU for machine learning and stuff is mostly regarding the speed and processing power only. Other than that, for other applications, I'm not really aware about. Web scraping, like it's a completely different topic, so that we can cover in the later section somewhere. because web scraping uses like there are a lot of libraries in Python, Beautiful Soup, and like it uses a lot of libraries to like scrape data from the web page. There are also some inbuilt libraries if you want to scrape data from Wikipedia. So there is a library for Wikipedia in Python itself. So web scraping is a huge topic, and so that can't be covered here. But there are libraries available for web scraping as well. Mm. Can you tell how much time will it take for a beginner to make a scraper? Uh, s- okay, so if you want to build a scraper from scratch, I guess there are references available. You can refer YouTube, you can refer other resources on Google. So I guess within a week, if you want to build it from scratch and you want to scrape complete data of a certain thing, there are certain websites which require some permissions which you might not have as you are just a school or college level developers. But I guess if there is a library, as I mentioned, like for Wikipedia there is a library mentioned, so it's just hardly a matter of a few minutes. But if you want to develop a scraper for maybe YouTube or maybe Twitter, it might take within 2 3 days. Okay, you're welcome. Okay, pep 8, I'm not aware about it. I've not heard what pep 8 is. Okay, you guys can continue putting your doubts in the chat. We'll take it in the next doubt session. So, continuing. So, there are a few basic concepts that we will look into today. So, first is a variables. Uh, like, you guys can tell me like what exactly do you mean by variables in like simple terms. Um, okay, so JavaScript is used for web development mostly. So, I guess you can go for Python. Okay. So guys, you can guys can tell me like what exactly do you mean when you hear the word variables in a coding language? Okay, container. Okay, that's nice. Harshada. Name of a memory, variables used to store data. Okay, so all of you guys are correct. So basically, whenever we want to store a value, yes, Adarsh, you're correct. Yeah. So whenever you want to store a value in a system, so what happens? Let's suppose we are saying that a equal to 5. So we want to store a variable 5 inside, like, sorry, value 5 inside a variable a. So what happens in your system? There is a little box assigned to the date value 5, whose name is a, and then it's stored there. So they are reserved memory locations in your system which are used to store values, and each variable stores a value, and each value has a data type. So the value can be a number, it can be like a temp, like you are measuring a temperature, so it can be a temperature, it can be a floating value, decimal value, it can be your name, it can be a list of numbers, it can be a list of numbers in a form of tuple and all that stuff. I'm sure you guys are not aware about these terms yet, but you will get aware about it. So there are 5 major data types. So there are numbers. Numbers include integers, floating numbers, complex. Complex in Python, like usually in Max we write 1 plus 2 iota. But in Python we use 1 plus 2j. So instead of I, there is j in complex. I'll show you in the coming slides. We can store a string, that is your name, your school's name, your college name, any subject, anything you want to store. List, if suppose you are storing all the marks of a particular semester in one variable, single variable, that is list. Tuple is another form of a list, but it has some differences from a list. Dictionary is used when there is a key value pair. That means, like, if you're storing just, let's say, we are storing marks of three subjects. So we will say 25, 30, 45. But which value belongs to which subject, we are not aware of it. So that is when dictionary comes into picture. We can say max equal to 45, English equal to 35, and any other subject equal to whatever value. Now, as you can see on the screen, if you want to declare a variable, you can just say variable name equal to the value. Let's say a equal to 2, b equal to 3.6, c equal to Python, d equal to 1, 2, 3. But there are rules to naming these variables. So let's look at the code aspect of it. For today's session, I will be using an online compiler. I'll give you guys the link to it. You guys can also refer it. So let me just remove the code here. So let's say we are just creating a variable a equal to 5, and let's print the variable. So when I run the variable, it's simply gonna say 5. And let's also look at the type of a. I'll say there is a inbuilt function in Python which is type, and it's gonna return what type of variable we have here. So here it will say that it's a class integer. If I change 5 to, let's say, 5.7, I'm gonna say it's a class float. Let's do the complex, 5 plus 3j. Let's run it. It's gonna say it's a complex. Let's change it to a list, 1, 5, 6, and run it. It's a list. So this is how we are actually storing the variables. Now let us look at the naming. This is how creating a variable works. Okay, so what I've done right now is I have put a hashtag and a sentence. So this sentence is actually known as a comment. So this will be ignored by the interpreter, and it will not, it's like basically for the user understanding, like, like this section is creating a variable. If I create another section, let's say naming of the variable. So here let's see, like, what are the rules, to name a variable actually. So we can use underscores, we can use alphabets, and we can use numbers. Okay, so we can name a variable with underscore d 56, and let's print underscore d. So underscores are allowed anywhere in the variable, starting, end, middle. So now we can see 56 is there. I can put it in between anywhere. I can put a capital letter, and let's check what's happened. Okay, I have not defined that. So it's running again. But one of the rule is that I cannot start with a number. So I can't start with a number. So if I name a variable, let's say 3f equal to 67, and I try to print 3f, let's see what it shows. It's gonna say that it's invalid decimal literal. So I can't name a variable starting with 3f. Okay. But I can use underscore 3f. As I mentioned, like, underscores can be used anywhere. If I run it, 67. Another thing that's about variables, that is case sensitive. What does it mean when I say case sensitive? It means that small a is different from capital A. So if I name a variable, let's say a equal to 45, and I try to print capital A, it's gonna say that it's not defined. See, name A is not defined. Did you mean small a? So, but if I change it to capital A, it's gonna run fine. So these are some of the rules about how to like go around with variables. After the next topic, I'm going to share the link and I'll give you like 10-15 minutes and you guys can do things on your own. Moving on to the next topic. So next topic we have, okay, before that, let's look at this sample code. So here is a sample code, like this is an integer value, 89, floating value, any decimal value, complex value, string value, stay calm and keep coding. Boolean value is true, false, so that's a Boolean. List value can be a list, it can have n numbers of elements. Tuple is a list with small parentheses. It can be stored to like store coordinate system and all because it's a pair of numbers. Dictionary value, you can share like store male to female ratio in a company and all that stuff. So I've also printed the values and the type of the values. As you can see, list is shown as list, tuple is shown as tuple, dictionary as dict, boolean and all that stuff. So this is all about variables and how to declare them. Moving on to list. So now list is a combination of values. Like you can store a ton of values in just a single variable. So lists are mutable. What does it mean by mutable? Like if I have made a list as 1, 2, 3, 5, and I want to separate 2 with a string, we can do that. We can change list whenever we want to. So there are a lot of ways we can create a list. We can directly say like my list equal to square brackets, or we can declare the list ourselves. List has mixed number of data types. You can put complex numbers, you can put floating, you can put numbers, you can put boolean. It is like a mixture of everything. You can put anything in a list. It is not restricted to the data type. There are also some inbuilt constructors which are there. You can directly use the list function to create a list. And similarly, I'll just show you practically in a while. To access the element and to add the elements, let's just move on to practical and let's understand these things. So let me just comment, or let me just delete all this and let's move on to list. So first, let's see how to create a list. To create a list, I showed you like a number of ways. First is, let's say L equal to 1, 5, 4, 6. Let's say Python. Let's also put 45.4. Let's put most of the things in a list. Sorry, let's put true. Let's put 4 plus 3 j. Let's print this list. Run it. So this is one way that we can create a list. We have all the values in one particular thing. And then we can also create an empty list like that. Let's change L to an empty list and let's print L again. Now it's an empty list. If I want to use the constructors, let's use constructors. Let's create the same list using the constructor. So list either takes empty, so it will create an empty list. But if I want to create a list using the list constructor, I have to pass this list in this. So this is an alternative. People don't usually use list constructors. So yeah. But it's an alternative. In case you forget this, you can just remember like, yes, there is also a constructor present. So let's run this. See, it's creating the same list as it is. Now let's understand how to access the elements. Like if I want to print Python out of the list, I want to access the fourth element. So let's see. So first let's access Python from the list, which is the fourth element. So to access the element, what we can do is we can use print L square brackets, and inside this we actually have to give the index. Okay, so we have to give the index. What does index means? Index is a position, but in Python, the index starts from 0. So, what does that mean? So, here 1 has a position 0, 4 has a position 1, 6 has a position 2, and similarly, Python will have the position 3. So 0, 1, 2, 3. So if I want to access Python, that is the fourth element, I have to write position minus 1, you can say. So the index of Python would be 3. Sorry, 3. Position of Python is 4, so index would be position of the element minus 1. So 3. So let's see if it's printing Python or not. See, it's printing Python. Similarly, if I want to access, let's say, the last element. So the last element would be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it would be 6. Run it and see. So now the index can't go beyond that. If I put if I try to access the seventh element, what will it do? It will show an error. So let's try that as well. So let's access the seventh element and see what does it show. It's saying that list index out of range. So the index goes from 0 to length minus 1. I hope this is clear. Also, let's see if we have an empty list and we want to add elements to the list. So how do we do that? Adding elements to a list. So let's take L2. We can use numbers as well in variables, and let's make it an empty list. So now there are two ways that you can add the elements. You can add a single element, or you can add multiple elements. So to add a single element, we use something known as append. Append means addition. And to add multiple elements, we use something known as extend. So these are inbuilt functions which we use. So let's say we want to add L2 dot append. Let's say we append 48 and then print the element, print L2 after this. Run it. Okay, sorry. We have to comment this out. Yeah. So now you see earlier L2 was empty. After I appended 48, it became 48. If I also append another element, let's say I append 90 and I print L2 after it. Run it. Now 90 is also added. Now, suppose we are adding like 5 values. So it would be very tedious to add append again for the 5 values. So what we can do is we can use extend to add multiple values. So let's say I want to extend the list. So in extend, we are going to pass another list which will add all the elements to the original list. So let's add, let's say 42, 56, hello, and let's also add 45.8. Now what this will do, this will add all these elements individually to L2. Let's print the list after that. Run it. See, it added 42, 56, hello, 45.8. So extend can be used when you have a lot of values to add to the list and you don't want to use append again and again. But there are only maybe 1 or 2 values that you need to add, so then you can use append easily. So I guess that covers the list part. Yes, let's just look at a sample code. Then I'll give you guys like 10 to 15 minutes and you guys practice on your own. So this is list creation. As you can see, you can create an empty list using just square brackets. You can create a list with mentioning the values. You can create list with variety of data types. You can create list using constructor. You can create list by passing the values to the constructor. You can access the element through the index, which starts from 0 and goes to the length minus 1. So to access the first element, it would be first 1 minus 1, that is 0. To access the third element, it would be 3 minus 1 equal to 2. To add the elements, we can use append or we can use extend. to add maybe 2 or 3 values, you can use append. But if you want to add more than that, so you can use extend. So that is all about list. So let me just give you guys the link to this, and I'll give you guys maybe 15 minutes to like test out the variables and list. If you guys have any doubts, you guys can write it in the chat. Okay, so I'm guessing like till now it's clear. Okay, Abhinav, what is the difference between list and array? So as I mentioned, like list can have a lot of elements, be it float, be it strings, be it numbers. Array is kind of limited to the data type. So if you are making a list of integers, sorry, if you're making an array, so you have to specify the data type there. Like if you are creating an array, so it has to be specifically to all integers or all strings or all floating values, because we have to perform operations on arrays, so there are inbuilt functions when it comes to arrays. List is kind of a manual thing, you can create your own operations there. So that's the major difference between these two. Okay, so let's move on and let's see what are strings. Okay, so as I mentioned, that list is a combination of values. So strings is a combination of characters, characters being alphabets, numbers, special characters. But here we have a single value to hold all the things. They are immutable. That means, let's suppose, let's take the name Abhinav. So if I write a string name as S equal to Abhinav, so I can't change the individual letters of Abhinav. So that's why they're immutable. String concatenation, that means, let's suppose I have Adarsh Singh. So I have two strings. First name is Adarsh, second string is Singh. So I have to add these thing to have the whole name Adarsh Singh. So that is concatenation. Length of the string. So let's suppose you want to have the length of your name, like how many characters are there in your name. So you directly use the function len and you pass the string to the function, and that is when it returns the integer value. So let's see the code implementation of the same. So here I have a sample code, that is my string hello Python. So initially the string is hello Python. So my string 2, let's say I have another string dot 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 Python is fun, and I want to combine these two. So I can directly write my string equal to my string plus my string 2. So I'm adding dot 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 Python is fun to the original string using the plus operation. So now the string becomes hello Python dot 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 Python is fun. Now if you want to get the length of the string, I simply pass length and my string and I get the length of the string. So this is like the very basic which you might need for some basic string operations. So moving on, loops. So this loops and after that conditions, these are the two major topics which I might cover. So suppose you are printing a multiplication table. So you have to multiply, maybe let's say you are printing the multiplication table of 5. So you have to multiply a certain number with 5 again and again and again. So that is when loops come into picture, when you have to execute a group of statements again and again and again based on a condition based on an iteration. So for loop and while loop, these are two kind of loops that are available in Python. So for loop, basically, what I can say, it executes over an iterator, over a counting, and while loop executes over a condition. I'll show you in a practical way, both of them quickly. Let's remove this. So let's say we are going for loop. So let's create a program counting till 10. So for loop, it works on a iterator, as I said, or it works on a count. So I will say for I in range, I'll explain you in a minute, 10, or let's say 1 to 11. That would be better. And let's print I. So what this gonna do is, range variable goes from 1 to 11 minus 1, that is 10. So if I have something called as range A comma B, it's gonna go from A to B minus 1. And what is gonna do? First time the value of I will be set to 1 and it's gonna print 1. Then it will increment one time, it will set to 2 and I becomes 2, print 2. Same 3, 4, 5, 6, and it will run until the value of I becomes 10. And once it goes 11, it's gonna close the system. So let's check. See, it counts from 1 to 10. If I want to develop the same code in while loop, that works on a condition. So let's say while, here I will mention the condition. I'll mention the condition in a minute and I'll say print I. So the body remains same. Now the condition would be until I is less than equal to 10. So I will keep on printing until I is less than equal to 10, right? So this is the condition. Once I exceeds the value 10, it's gonna stop. But where is this I is stored? Like we have to set the initial value of I as well. So I'm gonna set the initial value here. So here you have to set the initial value separately, because how will the program know like where is I starting from? So we're gonna start with I equal to 1 to I equal to 10. But now see what will happen here. It will keep on running because I is never increased from 1. To do that, after printing I, we also have to say that make I plus 1. So what this will do, it will say, okay, I equal to 1, I is less than 10, yes, print I, then change I to 2. Then again check the condition, is 2 less than 10, yes, print I, and then move on to 3. So let's see. So now it's running fine. Yeah, it's running fine. For for loop, we have the count 10, and for while loop, we also have the count 10. So this is like a basic example of for loop and while loop. So let's look at this flowchart as well. So we see like for loop, the loop will start. If it reaches the last element, then it goes to the for loop again. Otherwise, and loop ends. If it doesn't reach the last element, then the loop starts. Sorry, I messed up. So if we have reached the last element, then it's gonna end, or it's gonna end. If we have not reached the last element, then it's gonna continue the loop. For while loop, it is based on a condition. So if the condition is true, then while loop continues. If the condition is false, then loop ends. So let's look at the program. So here I have printed hello there 5 times in both the cases. So for the while loop, I'm setting the count to 0 initially, and if it is less than 5, then print, otherwise don't print. So it's gonna go from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and for 5 it's gonna end. For for loop, I have set a range. As I mentioned earlier, range A comma B goes from range A to B minus 1. So 1 comma 6 will go from 1 to 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the loop ends. Sometimes like both of them have their own advantages. Mostly for loop is used, but while loop is used in like certain conditions. When for loop, okay, so basically what happens, not every time we have the iteration count. Sometimes we don't know like how long the loop will run. The loop runs based on the condition. So that then while loop is used. If we know the exact number of counts the loop needs to run, then we can use the for loop. So both are used in certain conditions. So now the last topic for this session would be condition statements. So let's suppose we have a condition. Let's take the voting system. So a person can only vote if the person is above 18. So let's say the voting person needs to check like if the person is above 18 or not. So what the person can do is it can take the age of the person. It can check, okay, is your age greater than 18? Fine, you can go. If your age is not greater than 18, then you can't go. So let's do it with the help of a simple program. Okay, so age equal to, let's say 34 for now. So I'm going to check that if age is greater than 18, then print yes, you can vote, or else print no, you can't vote. So let's run the program and see. So it's saying that yes, you can vote because age is 34. Now let's set the age to, let's say, 15. Let's run it. It's saying no, you cannot vote. One simple thing that I want to teach you here is, let's suppose we want to enter the age and we don't want to like manually every time enter the age. So to do that, we use something called input. We can give a statement to it like enter your age, and it will take the input. Now it's gonna crash. Let me show you why. So it's gonna say that enter your age. I'm gonna say 45. It's gonna say that not supported for string. So by default, the input takes a value as string and not as an integer. So to make this value as an integer, we want to pass int like this. So what this will do, it will take the input and it will pass it into the integer. It will convert it into integer and then it will do the operations. Now let's run it again. 45. Now it's working fine. Let's run it for maybe 16. It's running perfectly. Now what if we have a middle base condition? So for age, we don't have this middle condition, but let's say instead of age, we are taking marks. Enter your marks. And we are grading the person on the basis of their marks. So if the marks are greater than 90, we can say topper. Let's say the person is a topper if its marks, his or her marks are greater than 90. Otherwise, we can say you have just passed. But what about the people who have failed? Like there is a certain benchmark. So let's set the benchmark here and then I'll teach you. So above 90 is topper. Let's say less than maybe 40 is fail. And between 90 and 40, just pass. So now we have three conditions and we want to use that. So there is a middle condition between if and else, and we call it elif. So elif is when we have a condition after if. So here the condition is marks is maybe greater than 40. We print just pass. And for the rest of the people, we're going to say fail. But now this condition is not correct because we have a range. It is 90 to 40. So what we are going to do is, we're going to say that if your marks are less than 90 and your marks are greater than 40, then you have passed. Let's run it and let's see. If I enter 67, it's going to say just pass. If I enter maybe 98, it's going to say topper. If I write something less than 40, say 35. What happened? Next second. Okay, I don't know why it failed. So yeah, it's saying fail. So this is how we use the conditions. So conditions can be combined with for loops as well. Suppose we are having a for loop and we have a condition in between. So these three are used for the condition. We can have n number of elifs and one else. Else can repeat. We can have n number of middle conditions. So this is how this works. So let's look at the program as well. So I have done the same program here. This condition is wrong. I'm sorry. Now you know the right condition. You have to use the and thing because it's a range. So yeah, this is the code. See, I have combined if else with a for loop. Like I want to take marks 3 times. So I'll say 1 to 4, that is 1, 2, 3. And I'll take the marks 3 times and I'm going to check the condition every time. So this is how you can combine various things in Python as well. So Yeah. So this is it for today's session. So for the next session, what I want you guys to be prepared with is like you can practice on the online compiler. I've already sent you the link. You can also download these things if not already. I'll just copy paste the links here. Right. So if you guys don't have Python already installed, you guys can install Python through this link, and I'll be using VS Code, so you guys can get VS Code as well, because for beginners VS Code is better. So you guys directly need to download any Python 3 version you can download, and for VS Code you can go for any of these, whichever system that you have, and you can just follow the steps and download it beforehand. So yeah, I hope you guys get it done. So yeah, so this was the end of day one. I hope you guys were able to understand, and I'm open to some questions if you guys have any for 10-15 minutes. So yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you so much, Dee, for this valuable and informative session. You were so great with it, and we have learned a lot from you today. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys for asking me to give the session, and you guys were an amazing audience. I loved the interaction as well. So kudos to you guys as well.
Thank you once again, and we'll be looking forward for more such sessions.
Yeah, I would love to have another session whenever it's possible as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, so you guys can also do the quiz, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Get the Python and VS Code installed for like you can build the project as well with me. Okay, thank you so much, guys.